Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Razor. Before we jump into the video, I just wanted to say if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things, it really helps. And if you want to see more content into the future, please consider clicking the Patreon link down below and going to my Patreon, signing up for coaching, or just supporting me in general for that $5 or $10 a month. It really helps because for whatever reason, YouTube has not monetized my channel, so I make absolutely no money for making all this content. So in order to keep up making content the future, if you guys really like it and you want to see more of it, please consider supporting if you can. Now that we got that out of the way, let's jump back to the video. So Razor is a very unique hero in Dota in that he can play pretty much every core position. He doesn't really play support, although, you know, it's potentially viable that he could be a support, but really he just plays core and he plays carry, mid, or offlane. He actually plays all three roles, and that's because this hero can be thought of as an anti-carry. Pretty much what he does and what defines the hero is the ability static link, where you basically link another hero on the enemy team and you steal their damage. You basically take all of their right-click damage and you give it to yourself. And because of that, he's very versatile in the way that he can play his positions, because he can kind of accomplish the same thing regardless of the position he plays. But he's also kind of aggressive in the way that he can do a lot of damage himself by right-clicking, but he does that through stealing other people's right-click damage. So it's also something where even if you're not doing a ton of damage yourself, the mere fact that you're taking away the other hero's damage makes it so that they have a harder time fighting. So that's why he can be an offlane. That's why he can be sort of a utility hero, but he can also be a right-click hero. He can also be a carry hero as well because of the way the hero works. So other than that, this hero is very kind of straightforward. He's pretty simple. You just kind of link people, you run around, you're pretty quick, you're pretty fast, you chase people down, you right-click them, you have an ability that, you know, does minus armor, you have an ability that allows you to chase people down even more because it slows them and does damage, and that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The real trouble with this hero, the real problem, and the way that you need to, have skill and try to figure out what to do on the hero is that he doesn't farm very quickly. He needs to have a decent laning stage, and he needs to kill people, he needs to push towers, he needs to do other things in the game to allow him to farm quickly. He doesn't really farm fast. He also doesn't buy items that allow him to farm fast. He just kind of wants to get a few items pretty quickly and scale relatively quickly, and then he can do a lot with those 2 or 3 items. So he's almost like Spectre. He's almost like Ember Spirit, which I did a video on earlier, but he does a lot with less because of the way that he can steal damage, because he doesn't need to buy straight up damage items for himself because he's just stealing the damage. He just needs to buy kind of survivability items like BKB. He also needs to buy items that allow him to keep on top of people, or allow him to live like Lincoln's, armor items like Shiva so he doesn't die while he's like chasing everybody down, heroes like Refresher that allow him to link 2 people or have 2 ultimates going at the same time, 2 BKBs, all of those kinds of things. So that's how you can think about this hero. Very much an anti-carry, very simple, straightforward, but has a hard time farming, will get outscaled in terms of farm. He will fall behind in farm if you don't play the hero right, if you don't have good map movement, if you're not being aggressive, if you're not, taking towers and these kinds of things with other heroes on your team. You're just kind of sitting in the back in the jungle farming. He doesn't do that very well. He doesn't farm stacks. He doesn't usually buy Mjolnir or anything like that, Maelstrom. He doesn't buy Battle Fury or anything. He maybe could go Mask of Madness, and that's kind of the only real farming item that he can go in terms of just speeding up your farm. But other than that, you just have to make do with what you can get out of the lane and out of kills and all those kinds of things. And he can do a lot, but it's just one of those things he's not going to get the net worth of a lot of other carries, a lot of other even mid heroes in that way. So that's how to think about Razor. Now let's jump in and look at his abilities. So now that we understand Razor in general, we can take a look at his abilities and see how he's able to be that anti-carry like I talked about. So first, we're going to take a look at Static Link. And this is his main ability, and that's why we're looking at it first. And this is what defines the hero, and it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You see there's a range there, and you can click on an enemy within that range, and then you can run around and you right-click them while you're stealing damage. You can see this buff goes up, and this debuff happens to them, and you can basically right-click them while you're stealing damage. Now, the thing to know is that you do automatically right-click them. So it's not something where you actually have to stop, right-click, like typical right-clicks, stand in place, use your right-click, then follow them. So it actually allows you to chase them down, to keep your static link up while you're, chasing them down and right-clicking them and doing damage. So keep that in mind. It is something that you do need to realize. In the past, I think you actually had to right-click them, but now you actually don't have to. You can just link them and you can right-click them. But if you want to right-click somebody else, which you can potentially do, you do need to like right-click and actually use your normal right-clicks. But it's one of those things that if you just want to right-click the person that you're attacking, you don't actually have to do that. So keep that in mind. Now, the last thing I'll say about this is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. There's a decent cooldown. You have the debuff, and then it goes away. But what you want to do with this is you don't usually want to link them from like the max distance. So let's say I'm back here and I click this on Axe. Well, what happens is Axe can kind of just run away. And sometimes what will happen is you'll like link them for a second and then they'll run out of range and then it'll decouple in like a split second. It happens every once in a while. So that's why you really want to like get pretty close to them. Obviously not in melee range. You are a ranged hero. But you want to get close enough that it's really, really hard for them, no matter what they do, to run away from you. Like you can just kind of juke around. There's almost nothing they can do. You're just going to be stealing damage from them and there's pretty much nothing they can do. And that's why you want to just try to get at least a little bit closer to them than max range when you're using this. Now, you can see that I was trying to chase down this Axe and I was doing really well at keeping up with him, and that's because this passive ability, Storm Surge, basically just gives you bonus movement speed. It's a pretty boring ability. It's probably the worst ability in the game in terms of like just the most boring, the simplest ability. It does nothing but give you percentage movement speed, but because it's like a percentage, it actually makes you move really quickly. You're one of the fastest heroes in the game, so you can chase people down really, really well. So that's Storm Surge. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And then last for normal abilities, this is Plasma Field. You can see it has an AoE there, and what happens is you click the ability, and then a Plasma Field basically goes out in an AoE in a ring around you. And what it does is it does damage to all the enemies in that AoE, and it also slows them. So we can see here, let's have Axe run away. I can use this, and the Axe gets slowed both times that he's hit. So that's the thing. It does damage twice. It does damage when it goes out and hits them, and also when it comes back. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that it actually does damage based on the distance. So we can see there's a damage minimum and a damage maximum. So what you usually want to do, this is kind of your only real farming ability, is you kind of want to use it in a way where you're just like hitting the range creep and you're, you know, moving back and forth to try to get those 2 instances of damage at the max damage that you can on the creeps that you're trying to farm. The same thing can be true for enemies. You know, you don't really want to juke in and out too much because you obviously want a static link, but just keep in mind that the further away that they get from you, the more damage they're going to take. So that is something that you can keep in mind to try to maximize the damage with that. But the main thing that you use this for is farming and also slowing people. So you can link people, you can catch up to them if they're running away, if they are faster than you for whatever reason. You can use this, it slows them, it does damage, and then you're able to keep static linking them. You're able to keep taking damage from them and right-clicking them. So those are all of his normal, regular, you know, abilities that are pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's not that hard to use or conceptualize how you use this hero. He's just kind of an anti-carry. He's one of the simplest heroes in the game. And then lastly, we can see Eye of the Storm. This is his ultimate. What you do is you pretty much just pop the ultimate by clicking it, and then a storm goes over his head. And you can see in intervals, the storm actually attacks nearby enemies and creeps. But not only does it attack them, we can refresh it here, it also is decreasing the Axe's armor every time it attacks him. So this is basically how it synergizes with your right clicks that you're stealing. So not only do you go into, you know, a team fight, you pop your ultimate, you're static linking somebody, or, you know, maybe you're trying to solo kill somebody, and now they're just taking a ton of damage, not only from this, which is physical damage in itself, so it does more damage the more armor it reduces, but you're also doing way more damage because now your physical right clicks are doing more damage to that minus armored target. So it's something that's very, very good with this hero, that synergizes well with his kit in the fact that he's obviously stealing right click damage. So this is how this hero scales. It's not necessarily with like straight up damage items. He just wants to survive, link people, get the link off, you know, get a lot of damage that way, have his ultimate hit people, and then, you know, they have minus armor and he just like does a ton of right click damage. And that's basically how the hero works. Now, this ability also works on creeps. It'll just kind of work on random creeps nearby. It also works on the hero or enemy that you are linking. If I, or attacking, let's say if I'm attacking, I think it's the one that you're linking. So if I'm linking, it's actually going to attack this one. So that's how you can kind of do a ton of damage there. You can see I actually have to run away or else this axe is just going to melt in 2 seconds. So it's very synergistic in that way as well. Now, obviously you're going to buy BKB on this hero, but the other thing to keep in mind is that you do want to buy Refresher Orb eventually. And that's because, especially right now when I'm making this video, Refresher Orb is really good. But the reason why Refresher Orb is good, not just because you can get 2 static links, 2 BKBs, you can actually use your Eye of the Storm twice. So we can see there I refreshed and I used it again. Now, obviously I have free spells on, so it wasn't a big deal. But now I have 2 Eye of the Storms going, and now it's doing way more damage. Look at the armor that Axe's armor is just melting. He's just being absolutely melted. And so this is a really, really good synergistic way to make this hero extremely powerful, and why he doesn't really need to scale directly with damage items. He just needs things like BKB, Refresher, etc. Things to keep up with heroes, things to stay alive and be tanky and that kind of stuff with this hero. So that's pretty much the hero's abilities. That's how to think about the hero. The last thing I will say is I will mention briefly the Ags. The Ags is very, very good because basically what it does is it causes Eye of the Storm to strike 2 targets. So it's not just one. It's not just the target you're hitting. It's 2 targets, which is really, really good. And Eye of the Storm actually targets buildings, which is really good as well. So it allows you to push, because one of the things this hero doesn't do is he doesn't really push towers very well unless he gets Ags. But then once you get Ags, especially if you have Ags Refresher, you will also melt buildings. You can melt buildings very, very quickly. The last thing I'll say is the Ags shard, not the best shard in the world. It's not like anything super special. Storm Surge just has an 18% chance when attacked to basically always when targeted with a spell to release Forked Lightning and basically just do some damage and slow for a little bit. It's something that you can get, but it doesn't really help like when you're farming or anything early on, because it's obviously you have to get it at level 20. It's just like a little bit of damage comes out, a little bit of slow comes out whenever you're targeted with a spell. So it's a little bit of like basically anti-carry kind of stuff. It's a little bit of tankiness. It's a little bit of things that allow you to, a little bit of something that allows you to stay in the fights, to do more damage, to be survivable, all that kind of stuff as well. So that is Razor. Those are his abilities. Now let's jump into a game and see how he's played. So now we're jumping into a game of ATF playing Razor as a safe lane hero, and you pretty much play this hero very similarly regardless of the core role that you're playing him in, the lane that you're playing him in. But you can see how aggressive he's being, and this is because level 1, obviously you get your static link, and you pretty much just want to zone the hero out with it because it's so hard for them to lane. With this ability, you can just steal all of their damage. You obviously see that the Timbersaw has to go for the chain level 1 to try to get away from this link, but even so, stealing 15 damage is not like insignificant, so he's going to win the trades there, and it's going to be harder for him to last hit, and he doesn't have to, or he hasn't skilled reactive armor level 1, which means he's going to take even more damage. He's not going to be able to lane nearly as easily, so you need to keep all those things in mind. It's a perfect example. You want to be very aggressive with this hero because of the static link level 1. It's just going to be able to, you're going to be able to out-trade almost every hero in the game. The other thing to keep in mind is when you're lasting with this hero, I didn't really say it in the, abilities portion because it's not really part of his abilities, but it is how the hero works, is that when he's kind of a ranged hero, but he obviously has his little whip, his lightning whip that he, uses, so he's not the best ranged hero. He doesn't have like huge range or anything. But the other thing to keep in mind is you need to practice last hitting on this hero. If you just watch how he's last hitting here, there's almost like a little delay when he actually inflicts the damage versus when the whip hits. It's almost like the whip hits for a second, and then the damage comes just a little bit later. So it's something that you probably should practice and get used to if you're going to play this hero. You can kind of tell what I'm talking about here in the replay if you look at it. But it's basically that this hero has a little bit of a unique attack animation and how it works. So just keep that in mind. It's something you're going to need to, do. But or get used to if you're going to play the hero. Otherwise, you can see he just kind of plays it like a carry. He's going to secure the lane, secure his last hits, get his farm. He's going to play it that way. But anytime he has the ability to he's going to get aggressive on the enemy with his static link because it just allows him to do a lot more damage, to trade more efficiently, and also to get last hits more efficiently as well, and just win the last hit battles whenever there's like a last hit versus deny battle. You can see here, obviously, that was a really bad play, probably by the Clockwork, and then he's able to get first blood there because the Clockwork was basically contesting him when he probably shouldn't have been. And you can see how much damage he can do and steal. And you see how he did save his Q. He didn't use his Q, and that's because he was able to run down the Clockwork without using Q. And you kind of want to save it for the end. So he was able to secure the kill without even using it because of the tower hits. But you want to save it for when the enemy is pretty far away, because you're going to maximize the damage that they're going to take, but you're also going to slow them down so you can keep up with them when they're about to, get farther away from you. So it's something that you want to keep in mind. Plus, if you can just, not use the mana early on and have more static link mana, that's very important to keep that in mind as well with your mana usage. Otherwise, this year, you're probably going to want to buy boots first, or one of the first items, because boots are obviously super important in this hero. I think this hero and Jug are probably the two carries that need boots the most because their damage is really dependent on how fast they are, whether it's for static link here or with Jug with his spin. So keep that in mind. But look exactly how he used his his plasma field there. That's the perfect example. He saw that the clockwork was low. He can use the plasma field to get max damage twice on the clockwork, and then he can also chase him down with that slow and get that extra right click in there to get another kill on the clockwork. So I think this is the perfect example of how to use this hero and his strengths in the laning stage to have a good laning stage. But otherwise, you're playing this hero like a normal carry. You're trying to secure the lane, secure the last hits, doing normal creep equilibrium things, all that kind of normal stuff that a carry does. It's just that you have to position yourself in such a way that you can use these abilities to maximize your potential as a carry in the lane. So that's the laning stage for Razor. Let's jump ahead now to the mid game after the lane is over. Now, I jumped ahead a few minutes here, and I just wanted to show you this part because it's very, very important that you have a good lane on this hero, and this is a perfect example of why it's important. Because, obviously, against the Timbersaw can be very aggressive, can try to potentially dive tower, kill people, all those kinds of things. But you can see how he clears the wave, he pushes it out with his Plasma Field, which is really good. I mean, Plasma Field is your farming tool, but we can see how he doesn't really want to go in the jungle yet. There's really nothing for him to do there. It's very hard for him to farm the jungle because he doesn't really have the mana to spam this out. It doesn't, his Plasma Field doesn't do really all that much damage, and he can't static link creeps, like it doesn't do anything, so he doesn't have any real innate farming ability as of right now, so he really just is reliant on the lane to get his farm. So that's the weakness of the hero. Now obviously he had a good lane leading up to this, but Timbersaw is level 6, he's only level 5, he pretty much just has to rely on these lane creeps pushing into him to get his last. Now, thankfully, he's tanky enough. He has his boots. He has his Falcon Blade finish, which is his first small item that he's going to go before he probably goes straight into BKB. So that's good. So he's able to sustain, but you can see how if he didn't have like a really good laning stage, earlier than this, he probably would have been booted out. And then where does he go? He probably doesn't want to jungle. He doesn't transition to farm ancients or anything like that. It's not really what this hero does. So it's so important that you maximize this hero's laning, because if you don't, it's going to be very, very sad for you to try to sustain in the lane. But we can see how he can get aggressive even on a Timbersaw because of his ultimate, because of the way the hero works. He can get aggressive on the Timbersaw. The Timbersaw actually has to TP out, and that's all thanks to the fact that he is level 6. He has his farm. He's doing really well. If he wasn't, he would be very, very sad right now, because he really can only lane. Laning is really what this hero needs to do. Without the lane, he's going to be starving for CS, for gold, for experience, these kinds of things. It's just not good when you feel like you have to leave your lane on this hero. So I just wanted to show you that. I just wanted to demonstrate that to you. He's a very strong laner. When he has a good lane, he's very strong even in the mid game, and he can keep laning, but he just doesn't jungle very well. So it's one of these things that you really want to maximize this hero's potential early on so you can sustain and stay in the lane, because jungling is just not something you want to do until you really have to, until you have a max Plasma Field that you can sustain. And even then, you're going to like fly yourself clarities. You're not going to have enough mana. It's really not going to be as fast as other heroes like Luna or any other hero that buys farming items, etc. So just keep that in mind. Now, I jumped ahead another few minutes here, and I just wanted to show you this because he did die because they brought a bunch of heroes up here to kill him. The Timbersaw does have, with +1, +2, the Timbersaw does have threat on him. But basically, I want to show you this because this is something that a lot of heroes, a lot of carries pretty much won't do. If they get dove under their tower, if they die and it's 12 minutes in, like maybe you'll TP back if it's 6 minutes in, 8 minutes in even. But a lot of other carries will just basically go to the other lanes. They'll go to the jungle, but this is not what Razor does. Razor wants to stay in a lane. He wants to choose a lane. He doesn't jungle super fast. Now, obviously, he pushes that out, and he will go back and try to farm other lanes and potentially farm the jungle. It's something he can do. He just doesn't do it super fast. He wants to be aggressive. He is strong, and he is a hero that, when you have your static link up and when you have your ultimate up, you can look to get aggressive. You want to be involved in team fights. So we'll see him work his way through the jungle, and I'll speed it up a little bit here because thankfully for him, he does have an IO on his team. So we can see eventually, I'll just put it to 4 times speed here a little bit. He is farming the jungle, and then the IO eventually comes to connect with him and help him farm. And this is really good for him because obviously the IO is going to help him with regeneration, with attack speed, and all these kinds of things. And so this allows him to speed up his farm in general and allows him to take ancient stacks when he otherwise wouldn't. But if you just watch this, this isn't really super fast compared to a lot of other heroes. And he even has to pop his ultimate to take ancient. So I will say, it's something that you can do. If you do have an ancient stack, if you need to get your farm up, you can potentially pop your ultimate to get farm, because it's one of the only ways that you can really farm very quickly. It's like Plasma Field and your ultimate. That's kind of what you need to do as a hero in the safe lane. But you don't just want to sit back and farm like you're a PA or an anti-mage or something like that. You do want to get involved in fights, as we can see here. Now, this fight isn't the best for his team, it's not going to be, that successful, but it's something that you don't just want to sit back. You are fairly strong. You obviously are good anti-carry. You can steal a lot of damage from the enemy. Especially when your ultimate's up, you can look to be aggressive. Obviously, he had to use his ultimate for farming, and that's kind of the weakness of the hero. He doesn't farm super quickly, so if you're going to blow a lot of plasma fields, use a lot of mana, blow your ultimate on farming, you're not going to have it for the team fight. But otherwise, you do want to look to get involved because this hero is pretty strong early on. You can, afford to take a lot of team fights. It's not something that you just want to sit back and passively farm in the middle of the game or in the mid game. And thankfully for him, he does have an IO, like I said, so it does help him speed up his farm. Otherwise, he just kind of want to look to get involved a lot more. But then as soon as they regenerate up, we'll see them, I think, TP in here to try to get kills because he also is a relatively low cooldown hero. Like, yes, you have your ultimate, but you can pretty much use your static link off cooldown. And, you see that the Death Prophet, obviously, his ultimate's gone now, so he can just basically afford to get super aggressive. There's really nothing the enemy can do now that the Death Prophet doesn't have the ultimate to scare away all of the heroes on his side. So it's just one of these things that this is kind of how you need to play Razor in the mid game. You need to scrounge out the farm that you can get the lanes that you can get. Thankfully for him, like I said before, he does have an IO that helps him, but you don't just want to focus completely on farming. You want to try to push the lanes. You want to try to farm jungle camps where you can, but get involved with your team. You don't just want to sit back and farm. Yes, they can make space for you, but you are an aggressive, strong hero early on with your ultimate and your static link and everything. And then I think the key timing that we'll take a look at in a minute is your BKB. Obviously, you go for that little item, and then once you get BKB, that's when you're super strong. So you don't just want to die and feed before you get BKB, because BKB is such a good timing. So do keep that in mind. You do want to farm up to your BKB, and you can get BKB at a very, very quick and early timing. And you see he's almost there at 16 minutes, and that's key. And then as soon as he gets that, he's going to look to take a team fight with his team. So now I only jumped ahead 2 minutes, but he's still farming, but now he has his BKB, and as soon as a good opportune fight arises or presents itself for him and his team, he's going to take it. He's going to be there immediately. It's not one of these things usually on this hero where you kind of are just debating whether you want to fight. If a fight is happening, you want to be there almost every time, especially once you have your BKB. Maybe before the BKB, you could question, okay, should I go? But you always want to be here. Thankfully, he does have his IO that allows him to, TP in with the IO ultimate, so he doesn't have to use TP. But if he didn't have an IO, he would want to be at this fight no matter what. It's just so good once you have your BKB. You're so strong with his BKB timing. And you see, he doesn't really have to pop it until later in the fight, but then once he does, there's literally nothing the enemy can do to him. This hero is so strong. They obviously take the Wraith King down pretty early, then they kill the Clockwork and the Timbersaw. He's just very strong. And now that your BKB is down and the ultimate is down, they have kind of a good synergy with their timings. He's just going to look to farm. Whether he has an IO or not, he's going to kind of do the same thing. Farm the jungle, push out a lane if he can, but just play passively until your BKB and your ultimate is up. Then, once they're up, then you're going to look to take any fight that's possible with your team, kind of anywhere that it's good, because this is really a strength of the heroes. When you have your BKB up, you're very hard to bring down. And now you can see he's actually going straight into his Refresher, and that's largely because this hero is just so good with Refresher. He's going to have double BKB, double static link, double ultimate, and he's going to become a beast of a carry. Now, obviously, if you are playing mid lane or off lane, this hero is going to be slightly different. But I think the build is largely the same because you're just going to focus a little bit more on being a hero that just goes in. You're going to focus a little bit more on pushing lanes. You're not going to play this part of the map necessarily like he is with this IO. You might, look to be a little bit more aggressive. You might look to set up a little bit more or play the side lanes a little bit more than he is currently. If you're playing off lane or something like that, you might be looking to initiate to go in first, to tank a lot of spells, all these kinds of things. You might not go Refresher, second item. You might go Shivas or something else like that to tank up. But otherwise, it's played very similarly. He's played almost exactly the same way, regardless of the position you're in. So that's pretty much how to play Razor. And now that he has his BKB and his ultimate back up, they're going to look to be aggressive with another fight. The enemy's going top again, and he's going to come top again with the IO. It's just rinse and repeat kind of thing. Now, it's not that the fights are always going to be here, but we can see as soon as he gets silenced, as soon as he TP's in and he sees a threat, he's going to pop his BKB. He linked the Wraith King the entire time, so the Wraith King is pretty much taken out of the fight, and now it's basically a one fight. Now, he is going to get gone on. There is the Death Prophet ultimate. There is a lot of damage coming out from the enemy. They do have Aegis on Rubik, which is a little bit weird. It's a little bit trolly. So you aren't super tanky, so keep that in mind. I mean, he does have the potential to die. We can see that happen there with the with the Death Prophet ultimate, but with the little help of his team, he's able to do a ton of damage, get off his spells, and get out because his BKB was up. But you can see how when he didn't have his BKB up, because he popped it early in the fight, he is fairly vulnerable, so keep that in mind. It's something that you don't just want to be crazy and think you're unkillable and you're, you know, this super huge beast, even if you're a carry, even if you have good net worth, even if you're ahead a little bit. If you pop your BKB, once that's off, once that's down, you are relatively squishy. You can get brought down fairly easily because you don't have a lot of like innate defensive spells or anything like that. You're very, very aggressive as a hero, so keep that in mind. But that's pretty much how to think about Razor and how to play Razor in the mid game. Now, the last thing I want to show you is basically how to play this hero late game. Once you get your refresher timing, once you have a bunch of other items that you can use a bunch in a team fight, and you kind of feel like this really unkillable carry or anti-carry kind of beastly hero. So you can see that now he has his items, he's ready to go. He has all of his abilities on off cooldown, his BKB, his ultimate, everything like that. He uses static link, he uses his ultimate, and he runs in. Now, he doesn't pop everything immediately. Like, he doesn't just pop BKB, he also doesn't just immediately refresh, because he knows, based on, you know, his judgment of the situation, that the enemy has already lost the fight, they're going to retreat. So because of that, he pretty much is saving everything else for later. So I can kind of just fast forward here. We see that there's 2 heroes dead, so they can just push. They can, you know, pretty easily and securely get this tower. But then as these heroes are coming back alive, the enemy knows they're, you know, behind. They don't just want to give up their triangle, so they go in and they end up fighting. Now, his ultimate's not, you know, up yet, but he does have the potential to save everything that he has to engage with double ultimate, double BKB, all those kinds of things, double static link. So we can see they end up going on the Wraith King. They end up killing him, which was really well done because I think he didn't have any mana. He still is not using his BKB. He's still not using his refresher. He's sitting back. He's kind of waiting for everything to be off cooldown. And now he's about to have his double BKB, his double ultimate, and his double static link. So now he knows that, you know, the Wraith King's dead. Might be respawning soon, but he can be super aggressive. He's very, very strong right now. He has double everything. So you can see, even though they just killed the Mars, he just runs in like a psycho, static links, ultimates, BKBs, kills the Death Prophet full to 0, and just runs after them like crazy. His BKB wears off, the Rubik shoots out a stun to try to like stop him, and he just pops the other BKB. Now he has double ultimate rolling. He killed 3 people basically, and he's able to basically single-handedly win the fight because of that. Unfortunately, he's very aggressive, and, you know, he basically just solo did that. So he is going to get gone on here, and it might not work out the best for him, but you see how strong he is. Look at how insane his ultimate is, his double ultimate that he has up. It just absolutely melts the Timbersaw there. And then he's able to return, or, you know, turn around on the Wraith King. Yeah, insane clowns. He's able to turn around on the Wraith King there because they got super aggressive, and he's able to kill him in his second life with just him and the Invoker because of that double ultimate. So you can see how crazy good this hero can be with that refresher, with just BKB. He doesn't really need anything other than these items to help him survive, help him just run in like a psycho. The Wraith King was respawning. It was like a 4v4, and he just ran in against a Death Prophet ultimate and just absolutely destroyed her and killed basically the entire team by himself. That's a perfect example of how to think about Razor, how to use Razor, and how to use the timings of the items and refresher and all that kind of stuff in BKB all together to be extremely powerful as a hero. Despite the fact that, you know, he relies on stealing a lot of damage, he can just be very, very good when you combine all of those abilities and the double BKB and everything like that together. So that's how to play Razor. That's how to think about Razor. He's not a very complicated hero. He's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. You just need to try to get as much farm as you can, make sure you're linking the right hero, and make sure you are using all of your abilities together to try to get the most damage off in fights. It's a very simple, very straightforward hero. I think the biggest challenge with the hero is really getting your farm. But if you're able to get your farm and have these items, like we see here, he only has BKB refresher, and he's just an absolute monster, and that's the biggest thing. So as long as you're able to get your farm, you know, get a good laning stage, I think that's the big thing with this hero, and then from there you will be able to dominate the game just like I showed you. So that's how to play Razor. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope that was helpful for you guys to play, to learn how to play this hero. As always, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things. Join the Discord if you haven't already, and you can request replay reviews there that I'll go over when I stream on Twitch, and now I'm streaming actually here on YouTube as well. And also join the Patreon. You know, consider supporting me if you can, so I can keep making videos like this. If you want coaching, you can go to the Patreon and request coaching there as well. So thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.